Ready when you are, mate.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Whole Squad UFC Breakdown for our fights coming up this weekend. Holm versus Aldana. We'll be going through the whole card. We've got UFC Deluxe, Mr. James Evans here. We've got Jason and Zach from the Damage Plan MMA podcast, and myself, Harrison here, Aspiring Burner, all on the Ramblin and Gamblin Sports Network. So let's get right into it. Our first fight of the evening we've got coming up on Saturday is going to be Yassine. I have been pronouncing this man's let me get him right here. Yassine Ayari versus Luigi Vendramini. There we go. Perfect. We got coming up fighting at lightweight to start our card off.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because both men are so inactive. I don't think neither men have fought since 2018. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of shape they're in, whether they're fully prepared. And obviously, look at Ayari. His last loss was to Stevie Ray. He's also fought Darren Till. So again, it's a sort of a case of how mentally prepared both fighters are. And coming into this, I'm probably leaning towards Ayari on this one. You know, I'm a big fan when you just look at him in terms of his striking. I believe he's got the reach over Luigi as well. So I think in terms of the striking matchup, I think he'll be comfortable on his feet against Luigi. And yeah, I don't think either men are going to get the finish because personally, it's going to be tough for them to look for the immediate finishes. They're both going to be cautious because they haven't fought in such a long time. So they're not going to want to slip up on this opportunity. So I'm going to go for an Ayari via decision.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of echo that, being that both guys haven't been in the cage since 2018. I would have to go a slight lean on Ayari as well, just because of who he's fought. He's been in there with Darren Till. He lost a unanimous decision to Darren Till. But it looks like, I mean, looking at Luigi, and once again, he hasn't been in the cage in 2 years, but he's got his last fight, he lost to flying knee and punches, but then he's got punches win, he's got a KO win, submission win, punches. So the guy's got a little bit of stand up. But I got to go with the guy that's been in there with the better competition. So I'm all over Ayari as well.
Yeah, I like Ayari. I know in betting odds, it's a coin flip. I like that Ayari has more fights in the UFC, has more fights in general, more than double the fights. I think especially when you're coming off a long layoff, experience matters a little bit more. So again, I'll go Ayari. I think we'll see this go to a decision as well. Maybe for not because of a lack of aggressiveness, but it just the way the fight's going to came out. Neither of them really have had any fights get finished unless they're getting finished themselves.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with the whole group. I'm actually just going to take a moment here and say, coming up first, we've got Yassine Ayari versus Luigi Vendramini for our first fight of the evening. We'll go ahead and edit that back into the video at the start. Magic of betting. I don't see this getting finished at all. I think we're definitely going to go to a decision. I honestly think it'll be kind of knowing that we're not looking for anybody to get knocked out. It might make it a good fight. I mean, we might have a good time watching these guys battle it out to the decision, but I kind of agree with everybody. I think it's going to be Ayari. They're both generally kind of rounded fighters. Neither one of them has like one distinct thing that's like their shtick that they're going to be going for. And I think it's Ayari's just going to turn out to be the better fighter after 3 full rounds. Next up, we've got a men's bantamweight bout. We've got Casey Kenny versus Healy Analang and that's our second bout on the prelim card.
I'm probably going to have to go with Casey Kenny on this one. I think there are a lot of people sleeping on him. I've seen so many people go he's potentially one to watch. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. And in terms of his grappling, I think it's just second to none with Casey Kenny. Although obviously Adetang, he does have that power in his right hand, but he's sort of on the back foot. He tends to rely on that wrestling to sort of get him out of trouble. But I don't think personally that's going to work against a guy like Casey Kenny who can just compete on all sort of fronts, especially on the mat. So I can see Casey getting this one to the floor pretty much early on and sort of frustrating Adetang for the full 15 minutes. And I think Adetang does have the sort of skills to sort of come victorious in this fight, but I just don't see him being a guy like Casey Kenny who's just the far better fighter in my opinion. So I'm going to go for a Kenny by decision.
Yeah, I like kind of like the same as the last fight, the first fight that we just broke down. Casey Kenny, a little more experience. I think he'll be able to ground that out. I do like that he was the Tough Enough 125 champ, which is a little close to home from being in Vegas. The Tough Enough promotion in Vegas is close to us here in Salt Lake. So I'm going to go with Casey Kenny on this one too. And I don't see this one getting finished early either. I think we see a decision on this one. But I'll definitely go with Casey Kenny, and I think he grinds this one out.
There's a reason why Casey Kenny's better than a 3-1 favorite in this fight. Experience, activity. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights in the last 2 years, opposed to his opponent, who I believe has only had 4, fighting on Dana White Contender Series. And in the UFC, those are his only 2 losses, his Dana White Contender Series a couple times. Beat our boy Brandon Royval, who had a really good outing, obviously, and is obviously a very high-level fighter. Obviously, probably wasn't the same fighter almost 2 years ago, but I think some of those wins against Ray Borg, Manny Bermudez, Luis Samoka, like those are standout wins, and I think he's on a different level. And I do think we could see him get a finish. I think he's at a different level. And when you start getting the levels, I know the bantamweights, you don't see as many finishes, but I think if it goes to the ground, and I think there's a good chance he could get the finish with a submission.
I agree 100% with Zach. Watching that Brandon Royval fight was really telling for me, because obviously that's kind of been Royval's whole thing is wrestling. That's kind of his major, like, extremely great skill set. And that was a really impressive match that Kenny had against him on the ground. I mean, he's kind of got that same thing where it seems like he's able to flip the joystick whichever direction he wants to go and take the fight on the ground whichever direction he wants to go. So I agree with Zach. I think we're actually going to see a submission finish from this, just because Kenny is going to be that dominant in the fight. I don't think it's going to be right out of the gate or anything crazy, but I'd say round 2 or 3, once they start to get into the gas tank, we're going to see him get down to the ground, and Kenny's going to get him in. And he's got a variety of submissions. I mean, it could be from really any position that they end up in, I think.
Right
Next up, we've got our first women's bout of the evening. We've got Loma Lukbonmi versus Jin Yu Frey fighting in the women's strawweight division.
Yeah, you've nailed that one, Berner. Well pronounced.
Nailed it.
In this one, obviously, when you look at Bumi, she was originally competing at atomweight in the Invicta sort of promotions, coming against Jin Frey. I've got back Loma on this one. I think she's more of like a technical striker. I think she's more of a destructive fighter, and she sort of has the technician and the skill set to overcome a woman like Jin Frey. Again, I don't think this is going to be. I don't think anyone's going to get the stoppage in this one. I think she's just going to sort of take advantage of Jin Frey, and she has sort of skill set to outwork and outland and overpower Frey. And I think I'm a big. You look at Lukabumi. She's very good in the Muay Thai department. And again, I'm going to have to back Lukabumi for a decision on this one. Yet to get a finish in this card so far.
I'd like to know the odds on this one. I'm just curious. This is a fight. I mean, I love Luke Boonmi. I love the name on that one. This is
just a slight favorite.
Like
minus 150, minus 150, 130, 150 in that range.
She's coming in. She's the younger fighter. I think she's 10, 11 years younger. She's 24 younger. And I don't know too much about either one of these girls. But if you haven't looked up You Free on Tapology, I encourage everybody to look her up. You're welcome. But I'm going to go with the younger fighter. I think she's going to be a little bit more hungry, and I think her stand-up is going to be a little bit better. She's coming with the Muay Thai background. I mean, I keep going back and forth in this one, but I'm going to go with my original pick, and I'm going to go with Luke Boonmi.
So one thing you have to learn about the Damage Plan MMA podcast, and when it comes to Jason, is he kind of likes to give credit to how female athletes look, opposed to just all fighting stuff. So I just take it.
Hey, I'm just saying. Just
so
Google her.
Is Jessica Rose Clark your pound for pound champion right now? Then
she's yeah.
Right
There's
below right below Misha Tate for me.
Misha Tate, yeah.
I don't care.
Give me I'll take a Ronda Rousey type. Let's go.
Should we do a podcast on ranking the? We're gonna get in so much trouble. I better stop.
I'm sending this clip to your wife.
Yeah, no, she doesn't listen. Thankfully, your wife listens. My wife doesn't listen.
But all that being said, I actually like the more experienced fighter here. Her last fight against Kay Hansen. Kay Hansen's supposed to kind of be one of the future next big names, big things in women's MMA, and she really impressed me in that fight. She dominated in the first round and got Kay Hansen off to a pretty slow start, and I thought that was impressive. But Kay Hansen was the better fighter and was eventually able to turn it around and get the finish in that fight. I think that she can learn from those mistakes, and she has enough experience. Spent quite a bit more time in the cage, obviously, and I am going to go with the older fighter, Jin Yu Frey. It has nothing to do with her looks, Jason.
For this one, I know on the Damage Plan MMA podcast, y'all try to not ever bet against Russian fighters. I've kind of got this. I've had the same thing for a long time for Thai fighters. They're kind of they're built different. If you're from Thailand, you're built a little different. I don't know what it is, but they hit a little bit harder. I am taking Luke Bomi. A lot younger. I do like to see that she's kind of the up and coming fighter versus kind of a veteran. I think she's going to come in with some really high energy. And I don't think it's going to be a finish or anything. I think it's going to be a decision. I think she's just going to outwork her and just kind of put more strikes down and spend a little bit more time in the eyes of the judges being in control of the fight. And she's going to end up with the decision because of it. So I don't think it's going to be the most exciting fight on the card, but that's where I'm going.
It might be the best, appealing to watch for Jason.
Well, and you know what? We'll make sure that we do a full rundown on that whole side of the thing maybe afterwards. After the fight, we can have kind of a Monday show on how the women's fights went. Next up in the men's middleweight division, we've got Jordan Williams coming in against Nassourdine, the Russian sniper Imavov.
This is going to be a good one on paper. I think you look at Nassourdine, he trains with the likes of Cyril Garnet and Francis Ngannou over in France. And I mean, that team is just, they've got some serious killers on there. Naturally, Nassourdine's a welterweight, I believe, at the top of my head, but he's a big welterweight. I think he's about 6'3", so obviously capable of competing at middleweight. Whereas you look at Jordan Williams, 9-3, 7 of those wins come via a form of knockout. So it'll be an interesting matchup on paper. Nassourdine, he can compete on the ground as well, but technically in the striking department, I've got to back Jourdain on this fight. It's a close one to call. Nassourdine looks like a right killer. Like I said, trains with Ngannou as well as Cyril Garnet. So it's going to be tough to go against Nassourdine on this one, but I just think Jourdain will be able to outland Nassourdine very early on and sort of pick him apart and potentially get the finish later on. So I'm going to go for a Williams fight, third round TKO.
Nice. Yeah, this one could be really interesting. Jordan Williams impressed me. I mean, he just fought on the Contender Series, 3 weeks ago? Yeah. And the guy he fought looked like freaking RoboCop. Like that Gregory Rodriguez guy was jacked. And Jordan Williams, I mean, I think he came in there and proved what somebody that's hungry and that wants the fight. He was taking some shots, man. I mean, I think I text Zach 4 or 5 times and thinking, I don't know how this guy's gonna make it, and then he pulls off a phenomenal knockout to get his UFC contract. If I'm not mistaken, he's a diabetic as well. So the guy's a grinder. I don't like betting against the Russians, even though he's fighting out of France right now. I hate betting against the Russians, man. But I love Jordan Williams. I love what he did in his last fight. Nassourdine, he's coming up from the welterweight, but he was a big welterweight. He was like James said, he's 6'3", he's big, he's long, he's going to probably be bigger than Jordan, but I think Jordan proved in his last fight it doesn't really matter, and he can take a shot. So I'm gonna back Jordan Williams on this one as well.
If the Jordan Williams showed up 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago at the Dana White Contender Series, I think he wins the fight. He like you said, Jason already kind of covered it. But the one thing that I look at with it is his experience versus his opponents here is, Dana White Contender Series, 3 fights on the Dana White Contender Series, handful of fights in Bellator. He's been on the big stage before. This may be his actual UFC debut, but he's been on the big stage before. Excuse me, where his opponent, not here in UFC Dana White Contender Series Bellator type shows, and I was really impressed with him. I do not think this one goes to a decision. I think somebody gets finished, so I'm going to go with Jordan Williams with a second round knockout.
I'm going to go against the group a little bit. While I was very impressed with Jordan Williams on his Contender Series fight, and I do agree that in terms of just strictly striking, if they were going to stand there and punch each other in the face until one of them was done, I think Jordan Williams is definitely the better man in terms of the striking and the ability to take a strike. But I do think that Imavov, in addition to a lot of the times you'll see where one guy has the size advantage and the other guy has kind of the skill set advantage where he's got the wrestling and the submissions mixed in with the striking. But in this case, we have the bigger man also having the skill set advantage. He's got kind of a variety of submission finishes under his belt. It may not have been against as high of a level of competition, but I think that's going to show as we get a little deeper into the fight. He's going to be able to spread out his offense a little bit more, as opposed to Jordan Williams, who I think if Jordan Williams was going to win the fight, it's going to either be via a grind of a brawl to a decision or a KO that he gets. But I think the varied skill set and the size is going to come in big for the Russian. So I'm going to actually take Imavov via round 2 or 3 submission. Next up, in the men's featherweight division, we've got Joshua Kuya Culibao versus Charles Air Jourdain.
Well, when you look at Charles Culibao, obviously he's won several regional titles in his native Australia, and I think he moved up to lightweight on short notice. And his last bout with Jalen Turner a couple of months ago in February, which resulted in a second round defeat, I believe, at the top of my head. So he's got the just 1 inch height and 4 inch reaches over Charles Jourdain. I don't know. I mean, you looked at Jourdain's performance against Uhu Choi. I mean, that was violent. I think he got the fight of the night bonus in that one. A couple of months later, he took on Andre Fili and obviously lost via a split decision, which is obviously a tough one to take. All of his wins have come inside the distance. Charles Jourdain, I don't know. I mean, this is probably going to surprise you, but I don't know. He's a huge underdog in this one, Josh Culibao, from what I've seen. I think he's got the skill set to sort of compete with Charles on the feet. He may, obviously, with that reach advantage, so he may have to resort to taking Charles Jourdain down and sort of exploit that underwhelming, in a way, wrestling technique from Charles Jourdain. But this is a stupid pick for me to say this, but I'm going to go for the upset on this one, Charles Culibao via decision. I think he's got the skill set to sort of get the victory, and if he implements his wrestling and his ground game early on, then we may see an upset on this one.
If you're right, you're going to be on our monthly Who Called It Wednesday show, my friend.
What's the odds on that?
We're going to be rich.
The odds are plus 350 for that.
I mean, I guess I can see that Charles Jourdain has been in with the stiffer James, I'm sorry, were you done with that?
Yeah, go for it, mate. Yeah.
I mean, I can see him being a big favorite, just being with who he's been in the cage with and who he's beat. He beat Hoi Chi. Lost a split decision to Andre Fili, who's a stud. I'm going to go with the guy that has a little bit more experience. But I wouldn't be surprised if I keep getting this guy's name mixed up. I wouldn't be surprised if Culibao doesn't finish him. So I'm gonna stick with the pick. I'm gonna stick with my pick with Jourdain. I think he gets it done just from experience only, but probably not a bad bet either, James. I'm going the other way. So
it's a huge gamble.
Yeah, it is. That's why we play, right?
100%.
My pick's Jourdain.
I actually think Jourdain's. I think he's a pretty surefire lock. One thing that I really like that I see with him, he has not won a fight by decision since his amateur career. every single one of his pro fights, he has won with a finish. And I think finishers are unique, and he's never been finished. So that's and he's lost, but all of his losses are to tough guys. Obviously, a split decision to somebody who's ranked in the top 10 of the featherweight division. He can hang with the best of the best, and I think Andre Fili is just one or two big wins away from being a superstar in this sport. And the fact that he could go toe-to-toe with him just a few months ago says a lot to me. The other advantage that I really like is his about 10 amateur fights versus his opponent's only 3. I think you see a lot of successful MMA fighters that have lengthier amateur careers. They're more experienced and more prepared. So just because he does have an advantage in a little advantage on his pro record, that amateur career is, I think, a big deal because his probably last like 4 to 5 amateur fights were probably against borderline pro caliber fights. So I really like him. I really like those factors when I'm looking at fights. And I think that makes it about as sure of a thing for Charles Jourdain. And I will go with a second round finish because finishing is what he does.
I agree with you completely, Zach, that amateur records are a little bit underrated when people are looking into people's fight careers. I think they see pro fight and they think it counts, and they see amateur fight and they think it doesn't, and that's just not the case. So I definitely agree with you there. Charles Jourdain is a finisher in every sense of the word, and I think he's going to get it done here. I think he's going to get it done in the first round, and if I had to make a hot take, I think he's going to get it done in the first 3 minutes of the first round. I mean, all he does is go in there and knock people out. And I think he's going to go in there and he's going to knock somebody out. I'm a big fan of Charles Jourdain. I'm excited to see where he goes in the UFC. And our last fight, our featured prelim of the evening in the men's welterweight division, Carlos the Natural Born Killer Condit versus Court the Crusher McGee.
It's an interesting one, to say the least. I mean, at one point a couple of years ago, we were talking about Carlos Condit being one of the most feared welterweights on the planet. And it's a shame. He's winless since 2015. He's on a 5-fight losing streak, which includes the likes of Damian Maia, Alex Oliveira, and Michael Chiesa. I believe that was his last fight stepping into the UFC against Chiesa. And that was, 2018? I think off the top of my head, but he hasn't fought for a long time, Carlos Condit, and the best days are behind him, to say the least. And with Court McGee in this fight, I think it's sort of a straightforward game plan, really. I think he's got to take Carlos Condit down because we've seen Carlos struggle with the grapplers, and his takedown defense is hasn't come up clutch for him in recent fights. So if Court McGee can take this to the ground early on, I just don't think Carlos Condit sort of has the ability, especially right now, to sort of hold his own on the mat and sort of try and get the win himself. So unfortunately, I'd like Carlos Condit back in the day. I think his best days are way behind him, and unfortunately, it's sad for me to say that, but I think Court McGee certainly does have the ability in the wrestling department to sort of get Carlos to the floor and eventually get the win. I'm going for a McGee by decision.
Nice. I might be a little biased here because I am in Salt Lake City, which is where Court McGee is from. Court McGee, season 11, Ultimate Fighter winner. The guy's he's a grinder, man. He grinds them out. He's, like James says, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what James just went over, the fact that Condit, he's on a 5-fight losing streak, hasn't been in the cage since 2018. Court McGee, a little more active. He had 2 fights last year. In 2019, I'm going with Court McGee. I don't see this fight getting finished early. I think that Court McGee gets it done by unanimous decision. I just think Carlos Condit's best days are behind him, so I'm all over Court McGee on this one.
100% biased towards Court McGee. I think he does win. I actually had the opportunity to train with him a couple times last year. My head coach used to be his striking coach before he was on The Ultimate Fighter. So he's from the area that I'm recording in now. So there's a lot of local ties with Court McGee. He's beloved here in Salt Lake City, legend of MMA here in Salt Lake City, and everybody loves him, and nobody has a bad thing to say about him. He's just the best human being and has one of the coolest stories in MMA history, his battle with addiction and his foundation of helping people overcome drug addiction and stuff like that. And I can talk about that a little bit because it's very simple. He's going to grab Carlos Condit. He's going to take him down, and he's going to grapple him, and he's going to win. He's going to grind out a unanimous decision. I think Carlos Condit is just way past his prime to be competing at this level. And when you're as dynamic of a killer as he was, once that's gone, show's over. There's a reason why he's lost 5 in a row, and it's about to be 6 in a row.
Yeah. Big striking fighters aren't known to get much better and have their best years between the age of 34 and 36, nor are they known to have their best fight in between fights 43 and 44 of their professional career. I think there's a lot of guys that can kind of go way late into their career if they've got kind of the wrestling, submission, tactical movement, different levels to their fight game. But I don't really think that's how Carlos Condit operates or wants to operate. And that's totally okay. But I don't think he's going to win this fight. And I think we'll probably see him retire before too long. But I'm going to take McGee by decision to kind of echo the group. Moving on to our main card in the men's middleweight division, we've got Dequan the Tarantula Townsend versus Duško Todorović.
With Dequan, he's obviously on a 3-fight losing streak, although he does have the experience edge over Duško Todorović. With Duško, obviously, I think he was meant to make his debut not that long ago, but was forced to pull out. Came in through the Contender Series last year, I believe, won by decision. He's got a perfect 9-0 record, and he's a bar his decision victory in the Contender Series. He's a finisher. Todorović, he's polished in that department, and his stand-up game is second to none. I'm a big fan of his polished stand-up striking. He's got background in kickboxing, so again, he's got that versatility in his striking approach. He's got good defense, whereby you look at Townsend, there are some flaws in his game defensively, in which Todorović can exploit. So, unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to back the 26-year-old in this one, Todorović, because obviously he's 9-0, he's hungry. And again, I think in terms of the striking department, I think he's better than Townsend. And I think we'll see him potentially get the finish. We'll potentially get the finish. I don't think this one goes a distance. We're going to guarantee a knockout on this one. And I'm going to have to back Todorović via a second round TKO.
This fight's being held at middleweight. So Townsend's actually dropping down in this fight because he is normally been fighting at light heavyweight, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
He's 6'3",
so he's 6'3". See, he's gonna be a big middleweight.
Duško's 6'1" too, though. Yeah.
I do like the fact that Townsend's from Michigan, but I'll echo what James said. I feel that Duško I think he's the better striker. I think the kid's got a huge upside. I think he ends up finishing the fight. It's a little. I'm a little hesitant on this one just because of the size of Dequan, and with Duško being such a younger fighter, early on in his career, he's only 9-0, and Townsend has been in there in the UFC case a little bit. What is it? 3 fights? He's on a 3-fight losing streak now.
Yep.
Yeah, 3-fight losing streak. 1, 2, 3. He's been in all 3 of his UFC fights that he's had, even though they're losses. But he has that experience. But I'm gonna back Duško on this. Duško, is that how you say his name? His first name? Todorović. I'm horrible at pronouncing these. Horrible at pronouncing these names. I'm gonna go with the younger fighter. I think he's gonna get it done. I think it'll be a round 2 stoppage.
Yep. I'm gonna stay on that. I think Duško. So when we talk about experience before, I've been kind of leaning towards the fighters with experience. But there is one thing that's alarming to me when picking this fight is when he's fighting UFC caliber. That's Townsend. When he is fighting UFC caliber fighters, he has been losing. He is 0-3 in the UFC. He won 2 fights before that, but his most recent loss previously outside of the UFC was to Jamal Hill, who was a Dana White Contender Series guy and now fighting in the UFC. And then he held a win over Hector Urbina, guy that we saw in The Ultimate Fighter a couple times. beat somebody that couldn't make it in the UFC. So I feel like there is a gap there, and when people are ready to be in the UFC, that they can at least they'll win a little bit there. But when he's basically been blanked against UFC caliber opponents, that makes me think that maybe the UFC is just a little bit above his head. And from what I've seen from Duško, I think he's a killer and he's a murderer. And this is one where you will see a first or second round knockout of the young, hungry fighter, where at some point the talent outweighs the experience.
Yeah. Todorović reminds me of like the villain in a new Rocky movie that's coming out. I mean, he's a scary dude. And I am with everybody. I see this one ending for before we get to even the third round. I've got my prediction is that we're doing Duško there in the second round. He's going to come in and he's going to hit him with something real heavy, and it's going to be the end of the fight. He's just a scary fighter, man. That's the kind of guy you see on TV and you say, yeah, I don't need to step in the cage with that guy. So I think it's gonna be a pretty thorough win for Duško. Our next fight we've got coming up is in the men's bantamweight division, featuring Kyler Matrix Phillips versus Cameron Camchida Else.
I think for the top man, I think Cam's making his debut this weekend, where he's got Kyler Phillips, who's won 5 out of his last 6. He's coming off of a win over Gabriel Silva back in February. He's got that great striking background, but he's also got a decent wrestling and judo background as well. So he's very versatile in that approach. He can go toe to toe with Cameron Else. So it's going to be certainly one to watch. And he likes to mix in his kicks well. Phillips, again, very versatile in his striking approach. So can Cameron sort of compete toe to toe in the striking department? Yes, but does he have the sort of ability, if Phillips wants to take the fight to the floor, does he have the ability to sort of compete on the floor? I doubt it. He's got a couple of submission wins under his belt, Else, but again, that defense is just not up to scratch. It's a surprise, really. You thought I'd be backing my boy Else in this one from the same country, but again, this is a tough debut for Else in this one. I think Phillips has got the stand-up to trade with Else, but again, like I said, he's got that wrestling/judo background to make Else uncomfortable and put him into deep waters. So from what we saw from Phillips on his UFC debut, I think I've got to back him again on this one. I don't think we'll see a finish. I'm going to go for a Phillips via decision on this one.
It should be noted that Else is coming in, I believe it was 8 days notice, short notice replacement due to travel issues with the originally scheduled fight for Kyler Phillips.
Yeah, that's huge. I actually think that could be an advantage for Cameron Else, honestly, depending on what kind of shape he comes in. It's kind of hard to give these predictions until we've seen the weigh-ins. I like to watch the weigh-ins. I like to see who's overweight, who's not overweight, how they're looking body-wise to see if they're looking like they're in shape, basically. I mean, I like Kyler Phillips. I think Cameron Else gets it done, man. I mean, his last his last 6 fights, he's finished everybody. Head kick, rear naked choke, referee stoppage, KO, guillotine. I think he's going to come in and I think he's going to surprise some people and get the short notice win on this one. I'm going to go with Cameron Else getting the finish on this one.
You should bet plus 335 on that.
Ooh,
that is
335.
So my boy Kyler Phillips is the biggest favorite on this card. So if you're feeling that, Jason, I mean, hey,
that's money.
That's good. That's good value, as I like to say.
I do think it's a tough fight. I mean, it's going to be a super tough fight, but I really would like to see the weigh-ins before I give my. But if Else comes in and he looks like he's in shape, I think he could pull the upset, man. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pull the upset. And he's fighting out of Jackson Wink, which he's going to be ready. So I think he gets it done.
Could he pull the upset? Sure. Is he going to? Nope. Jason, Kyler Phillips. So I think I am a little bit biased from a standpoint of especially recent. I mean, obviously careers can go in different ways, but especially recent Ultimate Fighter competitors, especially the season that Kyler Phillips was on. I have a pretty high level of respect for all those fighters being in there in that undefeated season. In that grind of the Ultimate Fighter house, I think that those guys are pretty high level. I mean, most of them have gone. Kyler did lose to Brad Katoa, who had a good little run in the UFC. Probably working his way back. I don't think he's currently signed with the UFC. And then he lost a pretty rough split decision in LFA, but he got right back on the horse, took a short notice fight himself, got back on the winning track in the UFC. I think his striking gives him an elite skill set where I understand that his opponent can maybe hang with it, but you're going to see. I think Kyler's striking is the difference in here, and he outpoints him pretty smoothly to a decision victory.
I like Kyler Phillips a lot. I think he's a really exciting fighter, and it's. I've been looking for kind of guys that are coming up in the smaller weight classes for me to follow, and he's one that I'm excited about. I like the way he fights. I think that this fight's going to be a little bit closer than the betting line would suggest. I don't think Cameron Else is going to get outclassed. He's a good fighter, but I do think that Kyler Phillips is a better fighter and is going to eventually get him with something that he's not used to seeing. I actually think Kyler Phillips is explosive enough to get this done with a finish. I've got it predicted to be around 2 KO. I think he catches him with some weird spinning thing or a head kick or something that is just a one shot and it's lights out. But I definitely think Kyler Phillips has the capability to get that done on most people. He's just kind of he's an exciting fighter to watch. I don't know what he's going to do. And I think that's dangerous. Next up, we have our women's bantamweight bout featuring Germaine de Randamie versus Julianna Peña.
Again, yeah, I think potentially the winner of this fight could face the loser of this weekend's main event between Holm versus Aldana. You know what to expect from Germaine de Randamie, obviously the former champion, which obviously did not last long at all, to say the least. For Peña in this one, obviously she's very versatile in her approach, but she hasn't, she's been very inactive as of late. Obviously, her last fight came in 2019 against Nico Montana via decision. She won that one, but unfortunately, her last fight before that was 2 years prior to the champion, to Valentina Shevchenko. So not a lot of activity on her behalf. She certainly does have the ability if the fight does go to the floor. However, you just look at Germaine de Randamie, her takedown defense is incredible. She's got the reach advantage, so I think she'll be able to sort of shrug off the attempts on Peña in this fight and sort of look to use her decent polished striking and pick Julianna apart. Again, with this one, I don't think we'll see a finish in this one naturally. I think Germaine de Randamie just sort of picks her apart towards the later rounds and gets the decision victory. So I'm going for Germaine de Randamie by decision on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to roll with that too. I like the fighter that's been a little more active in the last couple of years. Even though she did lose to Amanda Nunes, she fought Aspen Ladd, beat Aspen Ladd, who was up and coming, who's still got a bright future over it once she recovers from her knee surgery. Hopefully, we can get her on the podcast soon, Zach. But yeah, I'm going to go with Germaine de Randamie. I think that she's more active. She's going to be the bigger fighter. She's going to be longer. I think, like James says, I'll reiterate what James just said about, I think she just picks her apart on the feet, leg kicks, punches, and I think she gets it done by third round. And I'm going to say it's going to be unanimous decision.
Pretty tough to pick between two female fighters that cumulatively in the UFC, their only losses are to Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes. I think it's going to be a really close fight, and it's a very, I think Julianna Peña, I think people are, because of her inactivity, people sleep on her a little bit, but she's a very, very tough girl, and she's fought some of the best people in her weight class and only has one loss in the UFC for a reason. She's tough and she's healthy, and I think that stylistically her pressure could give Germaine some problems. She is great at takedown defense, but she likes to fight in that kickboxing range. And I think Julianna could, if she can make it ugly and get it up against the cage and make it more of a grind, I think she could grind out a decision. So this is one of the few that I'm going to take Julianne to get the little upset on de Randamie. But really, it wouldn't surprise me if either girl won. I haven't picked enough upsets yet on this card.
Yeah, I'm following the line and you guys so far, it seems. I think first of all, do not count any losses to Amanda Nunes against any fighter ever. I think, honestly, even if it's a loss, having multiple fights with Amanda is valuable experience because she is literally the best female fighter on the planet, I think, at this point. I don't know who else the answer would be. And so I think that's really valuable experience, even though they're losses. Those are her only 2 losses in the UFC. And I think that I've been kind of parroting this all night, but I think she is a really well-rounded fighter that's going to be able to go to a decision and score a lot more points. I think it'll be a unanimous decision. I like both these girls, but the fact that's kind of a bigger thing than I would have expected for me when I was picking this fight was that Peña hasn't fought Amanda Nunes yet. And the other 3 top ladies in that division have. And so she feels, when I'm looking at everybody that's in that division, she does feel like the 4th out of the 4 of them compared to, the 3 ladies that we've got at the top there.
It's fair.
So I'm going to take, I'm going to kind of echo and say Germaine via decision. So here for our co-main event, we've got at heavyweight, Yorgan de Castro versus Carlos Felipe.
When you look at this one on paper, I can guarantee you we're going to get a finish. The 2 guys, and you look at Yorgan de Castro, who's just got an absolute bomb. He can usually knock out anyone. He impressed in the Contender Series. I believe he got the victory over then unbeaten Alton Meeks, and then followed that quickly, just absolutely starched Justin Tafa. But he's obviously coming off of that recent setback against Greg Hardy. I believe that was via decision at 249. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back. But this is going to be sort of a striking war between 2 offensive strikers. Whereas you look at Yorgan de Castro, obviously he doesn't land the significant strikes, but when he does land, my God, are they explosive. You look at Carlos Felipe as well. I believe he's 8-1, 6 TKO victories, a lot of finishes under his belt. It's going to be a case of who can hit harder in this one. I know it's the old cliche, but I believe Yorgan de Castro certainly has the power to end this fight. And I think we'll certainly get an interesting start. I think both men are going to be at it. And then towards the second round, we may see both men start to tire and, the fight won't take place at a reasonably high tempo. But I think Yorgan de Castro will get it done via a 3rd round TKO. I just think that power in those hands could, translate into another big knockout. So I'm favouring de Castro in this one via TKO in the 3rd.
Nice. What I find interesting about this fight is both of these guys are only 6 feet tall. When I think of heavyweights, I think of these bigger guys that are 6'4", 6'6". Both of these guys are pretty. They're the same. They're the same guy. They're 6 foot. They're both around 260. I just rewatched the highlight of de Castro just with that counter right hand on Justin Tafa. That was. I mean, he just flatlined him. I definitely think it's going to be. It's not going to a decision. I think de Castro gets it done in the 2nd round. I like his counter striking. So I'm going to go with de Castro on this. I think he finishes him in the 2nd round.
I'm gonna echo the de Castro pick because we've all seen the highlight of him starching Justin, and it looks awesome. And the swagger with it, the 1-hit Mark Hunt like knockout, it's really fun. Really interesting though. Just in case people don't follow, last week William Knight fought, right? Hello, William Knight. He fought William Knight in their amateur career twice, and split those with William Knight. Remember, big
kickboxing match too.
Muay Thai. One was Muay Thai, and the other one is MMA. When de Castro fought him in 2017 in an MMA fight, they fought at a catch weight of 220. De Castro now cuts weight and cuts down to 265. This is somebody that is comfortable being lighter, but I think one thing you said, like Jason said, is counterpunching. I think he has a little bit of a speed advantage over some of these bigger guys, and you see that. I think Jason Taffa, I like first round knockout, maybe second, but they're going to be aggressive and they're going to come after each other, and they just both throw hard enough that it's a problem when somebody lands, when these giant human beings start throwing like that.
Yeah.
I love watching guys like this fight. I love the big heavyweight sledgehammer for hands guys. They are very similar kind of human beings, same height, both coming in at the upper limit of the division, both able to take a head off a pair of shoulders with one punch, no problem. But I think we're gonna smash it 4 for 4 on De Castro here. I don't even think we're going to see the second round. I mean, I don't think that anybody, this isn't a knock against Felipe, but I think as anybody that gets touched with a De Castro hook, uppercut, overhand, I mean, take your pick, any of the power punches. If he puts one on you, that's it. I mean, that's not your fault. That's physics' fault. That's it. And I think that's how it's going to go in the first round. For our main event of the evening, our women's bantamweight bout between Holly, the preacher's daughter, Holm, and Irene Robles Aldana.
Very well done there, Berno, once again. You look at the women's bantamweight division right now, it's in such a weird spot. I think Amanda Nunes has literally just cleared out the division, and essentially the winner of this one will get the title fight. I believe Nunes is fighting in December against Megan Anderson. So obviously the winner will face Amanda Nunes for the bantamweight title. But again, obviously you've seen Holly Holm, she's already faced champion. And as far as title shots go, I mean, you got to feel for Holly Holm on that one. I think it didn't go well for her, and that would be an understatement. I think she got knocked out in the first round to Nunes, and she's coming off of a decision victory over Raquel Pennington, and which was necessarily a dull one, to say the least. I mean, I was not a fan of watching that fight, to say the least. This is a big one for Holm because she's not in the best of forms recently as of late. Again, she's coming towards the end of her career, whereas you look at Aldana, burst onto I think she upset a lot of people in the Vieira fight, and she certainly put her name on the map, to say the least. She's coming in, I think she's 5-1 in her last 6. And personally, I think if there's going to be a finish in this one, I think Aldana will get the finish. Obviously, she's more of a brawler. She's got the ground game to back up a crisp striking background. Whereas, to say the least, obviously not to expect from Holly Holm. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think Holm, I'm going to probably go for a Holm by decision on this one, although I'm very reluctant in that prediction. I think she's able to outpoint Aldana, and I think Aldana will struggle to get home to the map on this one. I think she'll grind this one by decision, Holly Holm.
Man, this is a tough one. This is a good fight. I think this is a great matchup.
Real quick,
ahead,
Jason. Which Tapology picture? Who wins the Tapology picture between these two?
Oh,
who wins the Tapology?
Aldana. I don't have to look again. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I love the.
Just curious.
Neck down, Holly Holmes wins. But Aldana, I think, would have to win based off the pictures. Neck up. Is that okay? Is that an okay breakdown? Should we have odds on this?
Yeah.
There's no odds.
People bet on WWE. I don't see why we can't bet on this.
We're gonna get so much shit for this.
You are. You're the one that does it. You engage in it.
I am glad my wife doesn't listen to this because I would be in trouble. This is a good one. I think this is going to be a good. We touched on this before we started going live on this. This is one of those cards where maybe your casual fan is going to look at this and be like, nah, maybe I can skip this card. I think this card's going to be phenomenal. I think we're going to have some upsets on here. I think we're going to have some great fights, and I think it's going to end. The night is going to end with a great fight. I love Holly Holm. I do. I really do love her. But like James said, her last couple fights haven't been that impressive. I'm leaning more Aldana. I like her boxing, and maybe that's just because of what she did in her last fight with Vieira when she flatlined her with the left hook. I think Aldana gets it done. I think she ekes out a close split decision win on this. I don't see either woman finishing each other. just because I think both of their stand-ups are very well. But I think Aldana, I think she ekes it out, man. I think Holly Holm, unfortunately, is kind of getting to that end of that road. And maybe I'm wrong, and I won't be upset if I am wrong because I love Holly Holm, but I think Aldana gets it done, split decision.
I'm a big Holly Holm fan. This is hard because Holly's entering a stage that you don't really want to be in. She's going to have to start racking up wins with impressive knockouts and finishes to justify a third fight with Amanda Nunes. Right? It would be a third fight with Amanda Nunes?
Is it 3?
Or am I wrong? Am I crazy on that?
It's
second. But it's another title fight, right? Yeah. Another title fight. She's kind of been there, come down, been up, come down, been there. Like, she lost her title, went up to featherweight, lost. Pretty controversially, but then got the chance again with Cyborg, lost. Like, got the chance again with Nunes, lost. Like, you can only push them up so many times before people just stop caring. And Holly Holm's in a really dangerous area where, her last fight with Raquel Pennington, I remember people saying that was boring, that was dumb, that was whatever. But she did what she had to because she had to win that fight. She had to win that fight. She's putting in herself now, though, in a spot where if she just keeps winning fights like that, she might not get another chance still. There's nothing for Amanda Nunes to be like, yeah, let's do that again. She dominated her. She finished her. It just, she has to do something that makes people go, okay, she's different. She's on a different level. She's evolved into something different again. Now I want to see this fight with Amanda Nunes again. Because at the end of the day, the fans are going to be a big part of a big push of getting Holly Holm and what they want to see. There's she's going to have to do something impressive. I think for her, luckily for her, this opponent, Aldana, with her boxing, will engage with her on the feet and could give her that opportunity for that. So I actually am going to go Holly Holm by old school head kick knockout in the third round.
Nice. Prop bet?
Because she has to, or else she's going to fall into irrelevance.
So I think in the women's divisions, if you're kind of a kickboxing striker style, it ages a little more gracefully as you get further into your career than it does in the men's divisions, because you're not likely to run into a guy that looks like Yorgan de Castro or Francis Ngannou or Stipe. You're not going to run into or a John Jones. You're not going to run into a physical freak where if you stand there and box with them, they're going to take your head clean off. So I think she is getting to the point, however, where it is starting that style of fighting relies on a certain amount of strength and speed and athleticism that does start to decline in everybody at a certain point. And I agree that we're getting to that point. I like Holly Holm a lot too. And she's such a great, wouldn't that be just a great picture? Just the American boxing MMA champion, Holly Holm, put her on a poster. Wouldn't that be great? But that was a very, very brief poster that we had. And I don't think we're going to get another one. I'm going to take Aldana in this one because I think she's going to be – her coaches and her camp have told her the entire time that she's known that she's had this fight, listen, don't stand in the middle of the octagon and kickbox with Holly Holm because you're not going to win beating her at her own game like that. But I do think that Aldana's coming in with a more well-rounded skill set. Again, there I go with the well-rounded skill set, but that is kind of Holly Holm's signature. That's her business card, is her kickboxing, is she's going to kick you and she's going to punch you, and she's very good at it. But I think Aldana's had it drilled into her and is also a smart enough fighter to know that she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to get in there and kickbox with her. So I think she's going to manage to move around the ring a lot. She's going to change the levels up. And I think Aldana is going to end up taking the victory. I'm saying via a late submission. I think we get down into it and it gets onto the ground and Holly Holm gets into a position. Obviously, she's been a champion. She's been in the UFC for a long time. She's seen all kinds of stuff, but that's not her specialty, is wrestling or grappling or jiu-jitsu. And so I think she's going to see something down on the ground and she's going to get got there late into it's 5-round fight. So fourth round.
Yeah.
Anything's possible in an MMA fight, but I actually do think that Holly Holm's grappling is underrated. She showed a pretty good grappling against Megan Anderson, and Raquel Pennington. You would have thought that's where she had the advantage. And Holly's strength and stuff and her clinch work in that fight and her grappling herself was actually the big difference in that fight. Holly's so strong and physically imposing for that weight class. As long as your name isn't Amanda Nunes, she's probably the strongest fighter in that weight class. So it'll be interesting though. I mean, it's a fight. Who knows what's going to happen? I
think they match up really well. They're both
actually
Aldana's slightly, I mean, she's like an inch taller, but I think their reach is about the same.
Yeah, about 69 inches for both of them.
Yeah, 68
5'8", 5'9", right in there. So like that seems like that's pretty about 5'9" is pretty standard for those big ladies, huh? You don't see too many that get much taller than that, except for your like Danielle Wolfs or your like Ronda. Well, Ronda's like 5'11".
Was she that tall?
I thought she was pretty tall.
I think she was
just shy of 6 foot.
Ronda?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a big girl. She looks good on the movies. It's good for her for that.
Looks good on WWE.
She does. She's a fantastic WWE star. I'm glad she's doing something that she's good at.
Nice little dig in there, Burner.
Yeah. Nice little slide that one in there.
It's okay. I'm a Misha Tate fan. You can say whatever you want about Ronda Rousey.
I think, I mean, that wasn't fair of me to Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey is a good fighter, but she's not the best fighter in either one of those larger women's weight divisions, and she's not a top 3 fighter in either one of those larger women's weight divisions. And at this point, she wouldn't probably be featherweight put her in there because we've only got 4 girls in there. But
I was going to say, excuse me, sir, in today's MMA, she's not in the top 10.
Yeah, no, that's at this point, I don't think she could. If she said she wanted to come back and fight, I think she hits a hot prospect and gets beat up.
Yeah, the pool's too deep.
She had such a unique elite skill set that allowed her to do something that just other women could not find an equalizer to. But once they did, it was game over, baby.
Well, and all the girls that have been in other countries around the world saw what Ronda did and said, "Hey, I've been able to do that. We've been doing that for years. Did they just find out that women can do this? I mean, I've been beating girls' asses for years." And then they decided to show up.
Yep.
So she pioneer for sure, but she's definitely
pioneer, Hall of Famer.
Yeah, she paved the way for a lot of these women. So
100%.
Yeah. And now we have Amanda Nunes, who is just a champion. Oh my goodness.
Does anybody think Megan Anderson has a chance to beat her? I kind of think she does.
I do.
I do. And I'm going to tell you why I think she has a chance. Amanda Nunes just had a baby. They're welcoming a brand new baby. Maybe she doesn't take this quite as serious is kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, we've seen worse.
She's got a brand new kid, and she says, "All right, I'm going to go." She's got that motherly instinct kicked in. She says, "I'm going to lift this car off that bag of money I'm going to use to raise my kid." Did
you see the meme?
She's already got plenty of money.
There was a meme out there that said, "How did Amanda Nunes' wife get pregnant or something?" And
don't go there.
Amanda, get it? Ha ha ha. I didn't say it. It was a meme. It was a meme. I was just quoting the meme.
Might as well have said it.
We at Ramblin Gamblin would like to congratulate the reigning bantamweight and featherweight women's champion in MMA on her new child. I just want to make sure that we disclose that.
Yes, we do. I mean,
congratulations.
When she watches it,
she's freaking awesome.
I hope she watches it. I hope maybe.
I want Megan Anderson to win.
I don't want her to watch this because she might beat my ass.
I don't know. I don't think Amanda's going to lose. I think Amanda's going to retire before she gets beat.
100%.
Which
might be her last fight.
Which we should probably see more of, right? Like, I hate seeing fighters like hang on too long.
Diego Sanchez, Ronald Cerrone,
Cowboy, Cowboy.
I mean, it's great.
Frank Mir just signed with bare knuckle boxing because he can't.
That's what I don't want to see is these guys. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on the bare knuckle. And I know we're probably getting off, so if we have to go, we have to go.
I'm cool chatting.
The whole bare knuckle thing. I hate seeing these guys. You know, it's like a place where all these washed up fighters. It's just like a place where they go to die, and I don't like it. I've tried to watch it multiple times. I've tried to get into it. I watched the main event a couple weeks ago that actually wasn't that bad, but gosh, you go 3 rounds in a bare knuckle fight and you get all cut up. you can't fight again for a year.
It really makes me wonder how much they paid Paige Van Zandt.
She
$1
must
million.
To get her face fucked. Was it $1 million?
$1 million
she's getting a lot.
Because she's pretty, and she's going to be less pretty after she gets into a match.
That's my favorite thing is she's doing this to prove a point that she's a tough girl and that she can actually fight. But she doesn't realize that the reason why she's so marketable is because she's pretty. Yeah, she's a decent fighter. Granted, like I think she's
an okay fighter.
She's a decent fighter. She's a decent fighter, right? Like she's never going to be a contender, but she's a decent fighter. But she's doing this. I'm like, what happens if you get knocked out in bare knuckle boxing? Your face gets messed up and you're not a pretty girl anymore. Then you lose the Instagram money and the fighting money.
Yeah, because you can't. Because you're not going to be able to fight for a while.
But her husband can fight his ass off, so
he's
he'll
legit.
take care of her.
Yeah. I thought it was insane. Yeah, the bare knuckle thing is interesting, and that guy that runs it is a cokehead. I can tell by watching him. I'll say that publicly. He's says some very crazy things both in interviews and on Twitter and about other fighting promotions and about his fighters and about paying his fighters. That guy is wild. The dude that runs the bare knuckle thing.
John Jones's best friend.
I would like to
see John Jones in bare knuckle boxing.
We actually have a local fighter here that's got a fight for bare knuckle in a couple weeks. When's this fight, Zach? 2 or 3 weeks from now?
Yeah, it's like October 11th or something.
He's taking a short notice fight against LJ Hermrek, who's got a pretty good MMA record. He's a younger kid.
And that's for the bare knuckle fighting.
That's for the bare knuckle. Yeah, this kid from here, he's a local guy, went down to, was it Orlando, Zach? They had the tryouts?
No, it was in Kansas.
Kansas.
He's not local. He used to be one of my teammates. He lived here in Salt Lake.
He's in Idaho now.
An older guy. He's like 40-something years.
Hey now.
Okay, for fighting, he's a little old. Jason.
Where they don't sanction that everywhere where MMA sanctions.
Kansas.
It's in Kansas. Yeah, this one's in Kansas. It's on October 10th.
Is that the only state that's done it? Or
Wyoming?
Wyoming does it, yeah.
I'm seeing it. Okay, I just need those two to see the trend on the states that I see. So it's like early MMA, Wild West kind of who's going to let us do this style stuff. Vegas doesn't do it, do they?
Nope.
Somebody asked us on the YouTube chat, who is Paige Van Zandt's husband?
Austin, Bellator fighter. What's his last? Starts with a V.
Yeah, it's I'll Google it.
Get on the Google, Jason.
I am. He's
Austin Vanderford. Vanderford, isn't it? Yeah.
What's Austin Vanderford? Yeah, he's legit. He's got a legit ground game too. He's legit.
He is legit.
Spouse. Who doesn't love Paige Van Zandt?
That person's just pissed that he just found out that Paige Van Zandt has a husband.
Yeah. I was not ever that big of a Paige Van Zandt fan just because I don't ever get swayed by female athletes being attractive into me being a fan of them.
That's
and so
the
marketing push didn't really work on me. And she's not, with no offense to her, she's not a top tier UFC fighter.
No.
And so I just didn't really get the every time I saw some promotion with Paige Van Zandt, I said, well, all right. I mean, I get why they're doing it, but this is just so marketed towards a fan that's more casual than I am. I never really got behind the movement.
So you mean when they scheduled Paige Van Zandt versus Rachel Ostovich, your mind wasn't just blown?
I don't know if I saw that fight actually.
Paige Van Zandt won with an armbar. It was awesome.
I might have to go back and get that on Fight Pass.
I think Paige, she could have made more money going a different route than bare knuckle. Maybe we can't talk about what route she should have went on, but
anything.
You're just talking about OnlyFans.
She could have got an OnlyFans account and made $1 million in a week and not even had to do anything.
The bare knuckle thing, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Nope. That was for $1 million even.
Unfortunately, it's you getting all these guys. The main event I watched a couple weeks ago was Thiago Alves and then one of I can't remember the guy's name. It was a great back and forth fight, but both guys were so cut up. I just don't see it. I can't get into it. I find it real hard to get into.
She got a four fight deal for $1 million, $250,000 each fight.
Do you think she goes all 4 fights?
No, for sure
I
not.
don't think so. No.
Absolutely not. No.
She'll be
By the
lucky
way,
to last two.
By the way, she's a tough girl. You got to remember, she broke her arm in a fight, kept fighting, kept throwing. Remember, she just kept throwing switch kicks, like just jumping switch kicks over and over. She's a really tough girl. If that's what she wants to prove, that's fine. Like fighting is for the person. Like you get out of it what you put into it, and that's fine. But
the thing I worry about with bare knuckle is that like fighting's definitely for the person, and people that want to fight should fight. You know, if you're good at it. But
well, then I'm out.
With bare knuckle, I think there are a lot more I don't mind seeing watching bare knuckle matches where it's like some older, you know, like 35, 36-year-old, like bigger guys covered in tattoos. They boxed for years. They fought MMA for years. Like this is just their thing. This is what they're doing. And so they say, you know, give me a bag and I'll go in there without gloves on and fight this guy. I used to do that down in the streets of Rio back in the day, you know, or whatever. Like, I think there is definitely a genre of fighter where as they age, they can move into kind of the more brutal bare knuckle kind of style of fighting. And that makes sense to me. But men or women, whatever weight class, anybody that has an active MMA career and is anywhere on the younger side or that has other opportunities, whether it be in fighting or in broadcasting or in media or anything, I'm not saying bare knuckle's a last resort, but it should be one of the last things you do in your professional sports career. I don't think anybody should
It's totally a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, nobody
Artem Lobov versus Paulie Malignaggi. Crazy.
Yeah. Paulie's fighting bare knuckle?
He fought Artem Lobov.
Yeah, he fought Artem Lobov, yeah.
You missed this?
Yeah. This was ages ago.
Harrison, get with it, bro.
No, I just saw it trend on Twitter. I said, you being serious? Paulie Malignaggi fought Artem Lobov in a bare knuckle BKFC. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
I think every era in MMA, there's a fighter that are good and can be in the top 5 or top 10 for a while, but nobody ever talks about them. Is he talking about taking a fighter from 10, 15 years ago and then
he said his is Martin Kampmann.
That's pretty good. So so what YBKN0O is trying to say is he thinks Martin Kampmann will be able to compete right now, right?
No, what he's saying
people that are forgotten from the
like gatekeepers, basically gatekeepers.
Oh, okay.
They get forgotten.
Yeah. Well, look at you know who I think unfortunately is going to be forgotten by the wider public, not by MMA fans in any sense, but that isn't going to get enough play from the wider public once he retires is Alistair Overeem. I think Alistair Overeem should be a much more popular fighter. And I think when he was at his peak, when we had Ubereem, that was a really high peak. And I think, unfortunately, the public is going to forget about I think they already have kind of the like wider world of sports. So there's an example of one person that I think where I don't think he's going to get back to a title shot or anything.
Yeah.
But I think
I'll give him two. Same weight class. Anthony Rumble Johnson and Alexander Gustafsson. I mean, you could make an argument when Gus was at his peak, he's the third greatest light heavyweight of all time. He just happened to be it when John Jones and DC were in the game.
Yeah, it was certainly a shame because it begs the question, obviously, if they weren't there, would Gustafsson have been the champion had John Jones and DC not been there?
Or if he just wins the split decision with John.
Yeah.
That so crazy. Could have. That could have changed the landscape of the UFC forever. And I think he's somebody that will very easily be forgotten in 10 years.
Barring Amanda Nunes, do you guys think that to touch on a fight on Saturday's card, do you think Holly Holm would have held on to the championship for a while if Amanda hadn't come along, or do you think there was another?
But whoa! Who beat Amanda or who beat Holly Holm?
Oh,
my girl Miesha Tate did.
Yeah.
Tate. My girl choked her out.
Your girl Miesha Tate.
I love Miesha Tate. Johnny Nunez is a lucky man.
But do you think Holly kind of goes back and forth on championships and gets a lot more credit, barring how things actually ended up turning out? Because I think she'll be forgotten by the public later on as well.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I disagree with that because she has one of the most famous highlight head kick KOs ever. Yeah.
That's going to be relevant.
That's going to be shown on highlight reels for the UFC for the next forever.
She'll be everybody. Everybody will know her for that one.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing that clip for ever.
Yeah.
How's this for a basketball reference? She'll be like the John Stockton of the UFC. He hit that game winner to send the Jazz to the finals, but never really won the championship.
Sure.
Because they ran into the Bulls, baby. Not that I care about the Bulls.
Man, there's a lot of people I think that are always in contention for a lot of years and never really make it to that final little step up to the top.
Donald Cerrone.
Gray Maynard.
Gray Maynard, Donald Cerrone. I mean, he's popular enough that
He's got like a cult following, I think.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. But he's one of those guys that just hasn't got to that. He hasn't got to that elite level.
But he holds so many records.
Yeah, he's because he's been around forever.
I think we're talking like a Gray Maynard, right? Who he just never got to the top, but was always right there forever.
I'll give you one right now that could be forgotten in 10 years. Dustin Poirier.
Oh,
because but think about it. Like he's popular right now.
There's a lot of guys around that size. There's a lot of guys. There are a lot of guys right now that we would say, well, we can't forget about that guy. So I suppose some of them will get forgotten.
Yeah,
I can see that with Dustin.
I mean, he's gotten. I mean, he's one of the top level fighters, but he's once again, I don't ever see him being a champion.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's going on here?
If they run it back, if she didn't lose to Ronda, he says who is this? Who is YB? Do you guys know who that is?
No, that's just somebody watching, I think.
Yeah, so literally these are just the comments inside the broadcast, so I'm just adding them in, and I'm guessing they want your guys' opinions on this.
Yeah,
UFC was promoting the shit out of Holly Holm after the kick. Yeah,
they were.
Do.
Yeah, they still do.
I would have too. Well, just because Ronda had so much hype coming into that fight, like she was it.
Kick was so nasty,
and she wasn't even looking either. Ronda's back was pretty much turned. She was almost to the side when that kick came in. Pow. Nasty.
I think that was in Australia, wasn't it? So they got a lot of attention across the pond over there. So there's certainly a lot of hype around that card in general.
What do you guys think if Poirier and McGregor running it back?
I was going to ask that before we came on. Actually, I want to see it.
I do too. I listened to a lot of the lead up to that first fight where Dustin had a horrible weight cut.
Yeah.
Getting into that. So I don't know if the result is any different, but I want to see it. And I want to see I want to see it at 155 and not obviously it's not going to be at 145. No. I think was going to make a difference.
Yeah. Conor looks big these days. All the pictures I've seen on his social media, him working out and everything, where he's never going to cut all the way down again.
Does anybody believe the charity thing?
I was literally going to say it.
No. So here's the deal. The fact that Dana came out and just said, fine, we already sent him contracts shows you that they could have done the charity thing and there's nothing the UFC could have done about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And they're both going to get paid a lot of money to fight wherever. The really interesting to me is what weight is it going to be at? Because Poirier is a big 155er now too.
Yeah.
They might just be like, dude, it's not for a belt. They might do the same thing with the Cerrone thing. If it's not for anything, forget the weight cut. Let's just fight at 170.
Yeah, but then what are the permutations of that fight? Like if McGregor wins, what happens? Does he go on? Do you ever see him cutting down to 155 again?
He's ranked right now, isn't he? Where is he?
Yeah. It's like 5th or 4th or 5th.
Pound for pound. Yeah.
In the lightweights, yeah.
I think Conor's in it. I don't think he's ever going to be a champion again.
No.
I think he's in it. He's in it for.
Actually,
sorry.
I'm gonna fight you.
I think he's in it for the money. He's got money. He's in it for the big money fights. He's a superstar, and he's not beating Khabib.
No.
And I don't think he beat. He could beat Gaethje. I think.
I think he can beat Gaethje on the feet.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zach.
Conor. You stay busy right now doing whatever you want. Khabib's only fighting 2 more times, right? Against Gaethje and somebody else. And that somebody else probably isn't Conor. And so if you're Conor, you're just going to hang out, Obviously, he feels really confident that he does the same thing to Poirier again. I think it's a little bit different, but I definitely think he could sleep him again. Then you maybe fight like a Gaethje. You're the champ again. Khabib goes away. You're the champ again.
Yeah, but that's the thing. He doesn't even need to fight before Khabib vacates, because if he retires, Dana's up Conor McGregor versus somebody like Gaethje, Ferguson, Poirier. He doesn't even need to fight before a title fight. That's how crazy it is.
But he wants to fight Diego Sanchez.
I think that was just a kind of I don't think he was serious about that.
I laughed so hard.
He beat Cerrone. He's going to beat Diego Sanchez. Then he's going to fight like Robbie Lawler. And then he's going to fight he's going to just start running through all these guys that should be retired. Maybe he'll call out Carlos Conduit on a 6-fight losing streak.
Have him fight Daniel Cormier.
Sure.
That's at what point do we start at what point do we say Conor's only going to do legacy matchups? He doesn't give a fuck about the rankings and he's just going to fight dudes whose name.
I think we're there now. I don't see him. I mean, Zach did touch on that with if Khabib goes, there really isn't any. I mean, there really isn't anybody to stop him in that lightweight division. I don't think. I think he beats everybody. I think he beats Ferguson, beats Poirier.
I would love to watch a Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson fight. I was just thinking
or Dan Hooker. I actually him and Hooker I think would be good too.
Dude, I think the way you saw what Gaethje did to Tony Ferguson, I think Conor. I think
similar result.
Did you guys see that they were talking about Hooker and Ferguson? I saw somebody tweet about those two being a possible match.
Oh my!
I like that.
Gosh,
I like that.
Do you think if Conor and Gaethje fought next, like pretend that Gaethje, just ignore the Khabib fight that is actually happening? If Conor
I ignore Khabib all the time. It's fine.
He's so good. If Conor and Gaethje fought like now-ish, I take Gaethje handily, right? Do you guys agree with that? Or?
I don't. I'm going to disagree, man. I think Conor's striking is pretty damn elite. I think Gaethje showed phenomenal striking against Ferguson, but Conor's just on a different level, man, when it comes to that striking.
He's a different level athlete with his striking. That the fast twitch stuff, that is not something you can train or simulate. That's a God-given ability that Conor has that Justin Gaethje does not. You got to remember, I named a dog Gaethje. Like, I love Justin Gaethje.
He does.
But I also tried to name my kid Conor. So this is like the fight that I never want to see because I'd be so torn with it. But you take the fan out of it and you look at it from elite athletes. Conor just has a physical ability to do things that experienced fighters like Eddie Alvarez said, I've never been hit like that in my life. You know, and Justin Gaethje, he's tough as they come, but he gets hit. And if he gets hit by somebody that hits like that, it's that. And Conor's way quicker than Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's a little more plodding, a little bit more walk forward. I think I would worry that Gaethje would get dropped bad. Do
you think a rematch between Khabib and Conor would go any different?
Not really. Now, if you want me to be my big Conor fanboy, I can try and argue why I think it could be, but at the end of the day, probably not.
Yeah. So you've got pretty handily Khabib, Conor, Gaethje out of those three.
What do you think, James? What's your take on that? You think Conor beats Gaethje?
Yeah, I'm obviously as a proud Brit, obviously he's Irish. I'm a huge McGregor fan, but I've certainly watched him coming up through the Cage Warrior days, and I've just followed his career for a while now. But you look at Gaethje's fights prior to this, that sort of rejuvenated Gaethje against Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier. I think if we see that sort of Gaethje, which I don't know, I think there's no doubt that Conor's the superior striker on the potential matchup. This may be the McGregor bias within me, but I do see him finishing Gaethje. I just don't know if Gaethje just has the ability to withstand a guy who hits as hard as McGregor. And if that left hand lands, it's only going to take 2 or 3 to put Gaethje away or just even wobble him. And then I think he will get the finish if it does happen. I'd love to see it. I'm a big fan of Gaethje, but even when McGregor now, I mean, he hasn't fought since the Cowboy, and you see him get him into a lot of trouble. Give him a full camp and maybe one fight, then I think he's the next lightweight champion if he does want to come back and fight for his legacy rather than those weird fights with Sanchez and what have you.
I laughed so hard when I saw that text message
Yeah.
from my wife that said, "Bro, we should lose our promoter's license if we schedule that fight."
Yeah,
And you know what? I mean, I get what he means.
Yeah.
I mean, Diego Sanchez like 15 years ago versus Conor now is fun.
Yeah, but right now, I mean, that's doing Diego
Crazy.
Sanchez dirty.
Crazy.
It'd be dirty. But you know what? Sometimes those guys just want to get paid too. Fighting Conor gets paid.
A lot of money to fight Conor.
But Conor just has so many other better matchups that are
Yeah.
interesting that aren't
Like
going to
Manny
take
Pacquiao.
that aren't going to take years off his life. I mean, like, let's be honest. Look at the row of killers at 155. Like, look at the fight that Poirier and Dan Hooker just went through. Like, look at all those guys. Man, okay, I like the Ferguson Hooker matchup.
Oh, that's Caroline. Hi,
Yeah,
Caroline.
that's one of our
She's
one of our
one of-
Yeah.
Hi, Caroline.
Yeah. But like Conor has so many more interesting things that he can do that he can make a lot of money that aren't going to take years off his life. Because regardless, if he fights Gaethje, like he's not going to come out of that unscathed like he did the Cerrone fight. He can't fight Tony Ferguson, even if he wins and knocks him out. He's not going to come out unscathed, you know, against Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier too, even a Dan Hooker. Like those guys are tough guys, and he just doesn't have like the one punch knockout power like he did at featherweight for 155, even though it can add up. It's just, but he's got, you know, I mean, he could fight Nate Diaz again. He could fight Nick Diaz.
You think either of the Diaz brothers got the juice to make a big run of it?
No,
I don't.
it's a money thing.
Yeah, it has to be.
Strictly.
Not make a run, but I mean, hey, how much are you paying for a pay-per-view that says that headline McGregor Diaz and substitute Nick or Nate?
64.99.
Crazy.
Take all of my money.
Yeah,
I
the
don't have to pay
publicity.
anything. So sorry, Jack, on your own with this one.
Oh, screw you, man. No, just kidding.
So how far do you guys think Conor would go if he came in at 170 and decided he wanted to start being a regular fighter in the UFC again?
Oh,
He's too
he won't
small,
be
right?
He won't be a champion at 170. 155, yes. Potentially
170.
no.
I don't even think. I think everybody in the top 5 beats him
Yeah.
pretty handily.
It'd have to be a catchweight style thing with somebody that's usually lighter.
Speaking of 170, is there a bigger fight than Covington and Masvidal?
Oh, I mean, I'm so glad they scrapped that plans for Masvidal Diaz. I don't want to see it again, but I want to see Covington versus Masvidal.
I love that fight.
They need to do a live press conference as well. My God, the beef between them back and forth is going to be incredible. I love it.
Man.
Yeah. And I think I didn't as just an objective viewer of the UFC drama that happens before fights. Cause like when Covington and Woodley were going to fight, that was the big drama, was like what they were saying to each other. You know, like if the UFC existed back in like the 50s, they would have titled this something a lot more controversial. You know what I mean? Like they would have called it. They would have called it like UFC race war. I mean, they really built that up. And so, but I was disappointed with Woodley's performance in the showboating side of things. His shit talk wasn't good. His demeanor wasn't there. I didn't.
It never is. That's why he's not a star.
But Jorge Masvidal, pound for pound shit talking, 3-piece with a soda, everybody. I mean, he's got the juice for that publicity tour.
The list right now is him and Conor as far as being able to talk.
Trash talking, yeah.
For talking shit.
That would probably be the only fight that I think would be bigger than the Covington, is if you put Masvidal with Conor. And
there was talk of that, though, wasn't there? Not that long ago. And
I would have loved to seen that. I think we talked about it on our podcast with Zach and I. I'm a Diaz fangirl, and I don't want to see either of them fight right now.
Finally, an honest one.
Yeah, you gotta love the Diaz brothers because they bring it every time, and they're gonna talk shit, and they're gonna bring fans. They're gonna bring
So that Covington and Masvidal, I've seen most of the things that I've seen online, and I don't agree with this. Think that Covington just beats the shit out of Masvidal. I don't know. But maybe I'm in a weird corner, or maybe that's the majority so far. But that's what I've seen, is people that think that.
I don't think he beats the shit out of him, but I think Covington wins. I think he wins. It's kind of like the Usman Masvidal thing. I think that's kind of going to be the same fight, honestly. But
yeah, I could see Jorge catching him crazy though, and I think it's either a Colby win by decision or a Masvidal win by insane highlight KO.
I'd love to see that. Just to shut the world up and then silence Covington. For
First
days,
6 seconds of the fight, wouldn't that be something?
Even then, I'm still down for that. Flying knee like Ben Askren.
Yeah, exactly.
Covington out cold.
Out cold.
Covington plays a good heel. And
James, do you not like Colby?
In terms of his fighting style, yes, but I think his trash talking ability. I mean, I don't know. I saw look at the press conference with Usman. He's so holding up that trigger. It's funny, but I don't know. His fighting style, yeah, I'm a fan of, but there's a lot of people over in across the pond over in the UK that hate him. They genuinely want to see Leon Edwards put a bad beating on that Covington.
Don't worry. Most people here hate him too. It's fine.
I have publicly stated that I would get into the octagon with Colby Covington and get my ass beat just for the chance to hit him one time in the face.
He's underrated from a lot of people. A lot of people.
Underrated.
If you watch him, he's one of those guys that I watch his demeanor and I watch his entrance into the cage and I'm thinking, this guy's not going to do anything. But then when you watch him fight, you're like, oh shit, this guy's actually pretty damn good.
Yeah. If he would drop the shtick and just have his shtick be, I'm a good ass fighter, come and get it, then I'd probably be more of a fan of it.
True. That doesn't sell nowadays.
That's the thing. It's like that almost got him cut by doing that.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying though.
That's the hard part. It's like he's got to play the shit that's just
I can't root for him. I can't. I don't care what the odds are or who he's fighting. There is not a single fighter that's signed on a UFC contract where I would see them fight Covington and say, yeah, I want Colby to win that. There's nobody I dislike more.
I think the whole world celebrated when Kamaru Usman just absolutely obliterated him in the 5th. Regardless of the stoppage, that was a poor stoppage. I think
that was a win. Yeah, that was.
Oh yeah,
it was a win. It was a win.
I think the world was celebrating that.
I'm the only one that likes Colby Covington.
I like him. I just don't like him. I'm with James. I love his fighting. I don't think he beats Usman if they rematch, unfortunately.
I'm a big Usman fan too.
But he's on that side of he's not very, very promotable. You know what I mean? No. He's got all the skill in the world, but he just
I like my champions like that. That's kind of like why I like Stipe.
Who would you say is the most promotable champion right now then in the UFC?
Promotable? Izzy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Adesanya. It's hands down him right now.
Him and his wiggle boob.
He talked about that. He actually talked about that on.
And I hope he doesn't have breast cancer.
It's weird because it's an estrogen thing. You know what I mean? Most people would look at like a bodybuilder that has that and say, you have gyno, you need to get it cut out, which maybe his body is just responding and that's the way he naturally is. I don't think he's taking anything.
No, I don't think he's taking anything.
Yeah, well, and he was like, I'm not going to worry about it, but I'm getting it. I'm getting it tested. I have no idea what it is. And like, if a friend of mine had that and said that, I'd be like, damn dog. All right, well, let me know what it is. That's concerning. But he sounded not too worried about it. But yeah, it sounds like it's something weird. I mean, he wouldn't just to shut everybody up that wants to still be like, oh, well, it's steroids. He wouldn't have come out on an interview and said, oh yeah, I just went and got a test done and I'm waiting for the results to find out what this is. If he was trying to hide his fucking gyno from taking extraneous testosterone.
Or that's the perfect cover.
In that case,
that's just not taking steroids. That's just not taking steroids.
No. Now, if he walked in there looking like Overeem,
if he starts fighting at light heavyweight in the next 6 months, we'll know what's up.
Did anybody catch that DC said that Izzy's the best 205er on the planet right now?
I did hear that.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
I don't know if I disagree, honestly.
Do you think he smashes Peter Yan or Jan Blachowicz? Yes, he smashes Peter Yan. Sorry, Peter.
I do think he smashes Peter Yan. Man, if you gave him the amount of time it takes in a camp to move from 185 to 205, yeah.
Because he probably walks around 210, right?
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying give him 6 months to move up to 230 and then cut down to 205.
He's a problem.
I think, he beats Yan. I think he beats John Jones.
I think right now, I'd agree with that.
I think he beats everybody. Right now, yes. I think he beats everybody in the UFC 205 pounds or below. Yep. Yeah.
Can't disagree. I mean, I can't disagree with that.
The only dudes that could beat him would be heavyweights that weigh 40, 50, 60, 70 pounds more than him.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
Let's hear it.
You're underestimating my boy Chimaev.
Zach is on the Chimaev train.
Chimaev
ain't ready for
light
that
heavyweight,
yet.
2020, baby. Let's
Give him another year. Give him another year.
Chimaev's the
Who's he fight
170,
next?
170, 185, and 205 champ. Chimaev.
triple.
Who does he
triple
fight
crap.
next? Because it will be a main event from the looks of it.
They're talking about Townsend.
Yeah,
Thompson
but
wants
he
to fight
wants
Leon
Edwards.
Edwards.
He wants
He
Leon
should.
Edwards.
That's the fight.
Yeah.
That fight should happen. I want
yeah.
Neil Magny.
I
I hope it's Neil Magny.
I like Neil Magny too.
I think Chimaev Neil Magny's the fight to make.
Edwards has had a long layoff though.
Reyes is a hard match for Izzy, though.
He's big. Yeah, I mean,
No.
That's what our comment is there on that. That's not.
Yeah.
I would think I'd go Santos over Reyes being a harder fight, but that's just
Izzy's too technical for all those dudes.
For everybody.
All those dudes.
Realistically, in the entire UFC, who beats Izzy? Stipe, Francis,
Bar the heavyweights. Bar the heavyweights.
Alistair, all the really big heavyweights, but not even like the skinny heavyweights, not even like the 225, 230 pound guys.
To be honest, and I know it never happened, but I would be really curious if there was a wrestler like a Khabib or Usman's like style, like dominant wrestling that that could actually get their hands on Izzy and be able to actually take him down and hold him down. We haven't been able to see that yet. Chris Weidman, stop talking.
Did you see what he said? Oh,
I didn't. I don't think I saw this. What did he say?
Oh, Chris Weidman says he's the toughest matchup for Izzy right now because of his wrestling. His style would give Izzy a lot of problems, he said.
Chris Weidman said that?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Yep.
Doesn't he play video games now?
Chris Weidman.
He's a video game streamer now.
He would get knocked out so fast.
What do you mean?
I pray every night that Izzy KOs
Why,
Chimaev.
Caroline? Why?
Caroline, I'm blocking you on all platforms.
Chimaev could be the one. You give him another year, he's got to have more experience. Right now, Izzy's just too much experience.
Yeah, no one's stopping Izzy right now. I think even Cannonier gives him a tough matchup, but even then, I think Adesanya's got that one.
And I think,
does he beat Whittaker? Does he beat Whittaker?
Yep.
Cannonier.
Yep. Oh, Cannonier. I thought you meant.
I don't even know if he gets past Whittaker. He should, but I don't think
that will be a good fight.
It's gonna be a great fight.
That'll be a great fight.
It's a great fight. Very similar styles.
But they are fighting to lose to Izzy next, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
If Whittaker wins, do I really want to see Whittaker Izzy again?
No, I don't think anybody does.
Who else do you do?
Jack
Hermanson, maybe,
or Darren Till.
Darren Till would be fun. I just don't know.
He needs a win.
The lead up would be way fun.
Yeah. He's got one of the best social media accounts, the best Twitter accounts.
Something's not wrong with it, but it's funny.
I said this before 250, before our last event that we just had, that I would love to see Dominic Reyes and Izzy fight each other at light heavyweight. I think that would be a really fun fight to see. Just like the stylistic matchup. What
about Johnny Walker making a rise up? You think he's after his last fight? Do you think there's any momentum with Johnny Walker?
He's moved to SPG, though, hasn't he?
Yeah,
with Governor.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the guy's has a lot of talent.
Yeah, I was on the hype train, but then I don't know. I think he needs to pick up a couple of at least 2 more wins before we can start, judging what Johnny Walker as to whether or not he can sort of get back to the top or in contention in a way. He still needs convincing from my behalf.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I need to be. I'm not on the train. I wasn't on the train before, really.
I was. Yeah. I'd admit.
Yeah, I was before.
Until Corey Anderson stepped in there.
Yeah.
Well, gents, it's been even longer than it was last week.
Yeah.
We actually had a little time to talk.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we cap it here on our 90-minute show?
Sorry,
yeah, I don't mind ending the broadcast now. Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, that was great. Obviously, any of you are welcome to join if you feel like coming on and talking sports a little, a little more general, a little more relaxed. Tomorrow at about 6 p.m., we should be doing the same situation, live streaming and doing another show here for Ramblin Gamblin.
Sweet.
All right. Well, gents, it's been good. We'll see how we all did this weekend.
Roger that.
100%. Take care, chaps.
See you guys. Thank you.
Ya.
Cheers.